This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Death by firing squad. In its efforts to ramp up and expedite federal executions, the Justice Department announced Friday it's re-implementing lethal injections and authorize the use of firing squads to kill condemned federal prisoners. It's also planning to impose new restrictions on the ability of death row prisoners to seek clemency or pardons, along with a regulation designed to cut years off the federal appeals process for state death penalty cases. 5 states already allow execution by firing squad: Idaho, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Utah. At the Vatican, Pope Leo reiterated the Catholic Church's opposition to capital punishment in a pre-recorded video shared with DePaul University to mark the 15th anniversary of Illinois' abolition of the death penalty.
We affirm that the dignity of the person is not lost even after various serious crimes are committed. Furthermore, effective systems of detention can be and have been developed that protect citizens, while at the same time do not completely deprive those who are guilty of the possibility of redemption. This is why Pope Francis and my recent predecessors repeatedly insisted that the common good can be safeguarded and the requirements of justice can be met without recourse to capital punishment. Consequently, the Church teaches that the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person.
That video of Pope Leo was sent to DePaul University for a conference on the death penalty. It was Sister Helen Prejean who extended the invitation to the Pope's office for that statement, one of the world's most well-known anti-death penalty advocates and also author of numerous books, including Dead Man Walking, an eyewitness account of the death penalty. A graphic edition of the book was published in November. Sister Helen Prejean is joining us from Chicago, where that conference is taking place at DePaul. Welcome to Democracy Now! In these few minutes, Sister Prejean, can you respond to the Trump administration reinstituting death by firing squad?
Firing squad and the electric chair and gas, anything to get executions going, he has now done. I'm not at all surprised that he's done this. When we look at his record and his way of approaching social problems, his first instinct almost always seems to be demonize someone as an enemy and then kill them and destroy them. And the death penalty writ large is Iran, it's Gaza, and it's solving all the problems by using violence. We have to remember that in his first term, Trump, in the last 6 months of his first term, he designated that 13 people were to be executed, and Bill Barr, his attorney general, went in, gave the orders, and they were. I knew some of them and the lawyers who were trying to save their life. But this, when you look at it, it epitomizes trying to solve social problems, all social problems, by designating an enemy and killing the enemy. And you can see that in Trump's rhetoric about political people he considers enemies. He starts going after anybody even who disagrees with him. And he uses violent language about this is treasonous, they ought to be shot. So it's typical of him. But I also see it in the culture of the Deep South, the ex-slave states that are doing all the executions now. I mean, DeSantis in Florida had last year killed 20 people and has already executed 6 and is lining up more to be killed. But it's, when you look at the total sweep in the United States, most states, either in law or in practice, are not executing people. It's, but the Deep South still is, and they get the rhetoric from Trump. But I see progress being made, but the whole key, Amy, is to educate the citizens. I mean, even juries now in Texas, when they know they have the option of a life sentence or death, are not giving out death sentences. But we look at these pockets, and I see the reason for it, as I understand it. It's the way the Supreme Court set up the death penalty in the Gregg decision of '76, when they allowed huge discretionary power to prosecutors and to executives to carry out death or not. And so these decisions for death are left in the hands of individuals, and Trump being president is one of them. And so they're using violence like there's no tomorrow right now. These are sad, hard times.
Sister Helen Prejean, you have the Trump administration announcing plans to add firing squads, electrocution, and gas asphyxiation to its arsenal of methods to execute federal prisoners on death row. It also noted the obstacles to obtaining drugs for lethal injections. In this last minute, what you are calling for now at DePaul in Chicago, where Pope Leo is from.
Yeah. Well, the Pope responded readily to the invitation. We were celebrating the 15th anniversary of Illinois abolishing the death penalty. Governor Pat Quinn, who signed the abolition order into law, was there. So it was to hold up a beacon of light, of hope in the dark times. And so the Pope's very clear. I mean, it was 1,500 years of dialogue in the Catholic Church to reach a position in the Catechism of official teaching that no matter how terrible a crime, we can never turn over to governments that absolute power over human life, that they can decide to kill their citizens.
As we continue this conversation, Sister Helen Prejean, I wanted to ask you about the conference you're at DePaul in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is where Pope Leo is from. The message that you played of Pope Leo opposing the death penalty came out almost concurrent with the Trump administration announcement expanding the methods to carry out federal executions. President Biden had put a moratorium on federal executions. Can you talk about the significance of this?
Yeah. Well, the Pope's, that we had invited him to send a message to this to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Illinois abolishing the death penalty, and Governor Pat Quinn was there. That was the occasion. And we issued the invitation to him, and he responded readily. Now, this has been in work for weeks. It just happened to coincide that right as he gave this message, this video message to us Friday, here you had the Trump administration announcing that you're going to use every form possible to kill people so that they can expedite executions. They just happened to coincide. But they were not related directly to each other, except to say that Pope Leo is coming out very strongly that the paradigm of using the death penalty to kill the killers, to try to control violence, is the microcosm of Gaza and Iran. You designate an enemy, you dehumanize them, and you kill them. And so the Pope is speaking out. He's one of the prominent voices now in the world. But that's the church. It took 1,500 years of dialogue to reach a position that is in alignment with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which means you can never make an exception and ever entrust over to governments that right to decide that they can kill some of their citizens for their crimes.
This isn't the first time that the Pope has dramatically diverged from the Trump administration. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently prayed for military commanders to unleash, quote, unquote, overwhelming violence against enemies. Hegseth, who's long embraced Christian nationalism, has repeatedly invoked Jesus Christ in recent weeks during official remarks about the war in Iran. In his Palm Sunday address in Vatican City, Pope Leo called the war in Iran atrocious and said leaders who start wars have, quote, unquote, hands full of blood. How is the Pope taking on not just Trump, but his version of Christian nationalism and respond to what Pope Leo has said?
Well, Pope Leo is doing what Pope Francis did and what the Pope before him did. It's announcing the true gospel of Jesus is nonviolence. The true gospel of Jesus is you dialogue respectfully with people. You don't automatically deem them an enemy and kill them. And I've noticed this about the death penalty, that people wanted to quote religious reasons that therefore God is justifying what we're doing. And so selectively quoting the Bible, but it's really reached a new zenith now with Trump and Hegseth. I mean, that statement of let us go to, this is a holy war, and let us do it in the name of Jesus Christ. Everyone kneel and pray, a holy war like the Crusades. And the Pope took it on. So the Pope is not afraid to take things on. And as he said recently, I'm not in a political arguing match with a politician as if I'm a politician. I'm simply continuing to announce and proclaim the gospel of Jesus, which is always going to be about nonviolence and respect of other persons and never war. And so he speaks out consistently about it.
Last April in South Carolina, autopsy records revealed corrections officers botched the execution of Mikhail Mahdi, who was killed by firing squad last year after being sentenced to death in 2006. Mahdi's 3 executioners missed his heart, hitting his abdomen and causing him, quote, excruciating conscious pain and suffering for about 30 to 60 seconds, unquote. He was pronounced dead nearly 4 minutes after the officers fired. Mikhail Mahdi's lawyers said he selected the firing squad method over lethal injection and the electric chair because he believed it would be the lesser of 3 evils, quote unquote. Sister Helen Prejean, your response.
There's no humane way to kill a human being. Look at all the methods they have, but it's human beings who are prone to error that are behind all of this. Whether you're shooting somebody, if you're lethally injecting people with drugs. I mean, they've done autopsies on the lungs of 200 people that have been lethally injected and have found this kind of porous, floaty thing in their lungs, which means they were gasping for breath when they were being killed. But often they paralyze them so that you can't see them struggling. There is no humane way to kill a conscious, imaginative human being. And so we see all these errors. And you just see the effort more and more to make it like medicine or a medical procedure that we're just putting somebody to sleep. But we see Trump departing from that. Heck no, forget about all this lethal injection and the problems of getting the drugs. Let's shoot them. Let's electrocute them to death, and let's gas them, and let's shorten the process so they can't have these appeals, and let's kill them all and kill them quickly. Look at the mentality that's present in this.
I want to quote from Reuters. The U.S. is one of very few Western nations that still uses the death penalty, although public support for capital punishment has gradually declined among Americans. According to long-running Gallup surveys, 52% said they supported it for murder last October, the lowest in more than half a century, while 44% said they opposed it. If you can respond to this changing view, the increased opposition to the death penalty, and what do you think it would take to end it in the United States legally?
Yeah. Like when Dead Man Walking came out in '93, 80% of the American public said they supported the death penalty. What changes it is people having a chance to reflect and understand how the death penalty works, how selective it is, how racist it is, how it's only poor people chosen. And we have been following, I have been following the mandate from Thurgood Marshall, who said early on, a lot of Americans say they believe in the death penalty, but educate them on it, bring them close. And that's what's been happening in the country. Like, take my state, Louisiana. We hadn't had an execution for 17 years until we got this Republican governor, Jeff Landry, who claimed he's going to clean out death row and execute everybody with that mentality of we're going to kill them all kind of thing. But the people have changed. Even juries in Texas, the state that has the most executions, are reluctant to give the death penalty, and often they don't. It's not a deep-seated thing in our people to want to kill people and to put the government in charge. So the whole key, Amy, the more we educate people on it and get to them, this graphic edition of Dead Man Walking, we've been getting it out to young people across the countries and to universities. It's reflection, understanding how it works, and then most people say, oh, I don't want the death penalty. Look how many town hall meetings are held where people bring up all their problems and somebody says, oh, and we need the death penalty. It's so selective and it's so costly and it takes so much time. The average waiting time from a death sentence at a trial to an execution is 17 years. And to claim that we're doing this for the victims' families is such a moral outrage, even to say it. So their grief is public all this time when they're waiting, and then supposedly they get to sit on the front row. They're going to leave that execution, and the person who was killed, the chair is still going to be empty where they sat. But it's education, education, education of the people. And I actually have hope. I can see the difference that's happening in the country, despite these pockets of death that we have in the deep South states that were former slave states. But education is really the answer, and it's the way our democracy works. People thought, and there was a lot of support for slavery. There was a long time people didn't support the vote of women, but we educate people and things change.
Sister Helen Prejean, for people, particularly young people, who don't know how you got involved with this issue, I mean, the story became extremely famous when your book, Dead Man Walking, became a film. Susan Sarandon played you. She won an Oscar for her performance. Talk about how you came to oppose the death penalty.
Grew up as a young Catholic kid where the teaching of the church for a long time was that the state had the right to execute. It was always to protect society. But then I awakened to justice issues in my own city of New Orleans. And it's when I moved into the neighborhood with African American people who, Amy, when I grew up in the Jim Crow days, I only knew African American people as servants. Everything was completely segregated. But then I moved into this neighborhood and I just saw the difference. It was like a different country, different rules, the way people were treated. And then one day I got an invitation, would I write a letter to a death row inmate? And I did. His name was Patrick Sonia. He's the first story in Dead Man Walking. I thought I was only going to be writing letters. I had no idea they really were going to kill him. We hadn't had an execution in 20 years. So in some ways, I feel like I fell down a laundry chute into this whole thing. But when I witnessed that execution and saw a man who had been fully alive, taken and deliberately killed, that changed my life because I'm a witness. And very few people I know will ever witness what it means for the state to kill people. It's like a semi-secret ritual. And that plunged me then into public debate about the death penalty. Because I'm a witness, I tell the story. So when the film of Dead Man Walking was made in '95, and then the Oscars, and 4 nominations in '96, 1.3 billion people in the world were watching the Oscars that night. And Dead Man Walking then entered into the vernacular, and the debate, public debate, then really began in earnest. So you can see the difference from the book coming out in '93 and then the recent Gallup poll that people are changing about the death penalty. So I'm happy to see that, and we'll be engaged with this as long as God gives me breath.
Sister Helen Prejean, one of the world's most well-known anti-death penalty activists, the author of the best-selling book, Dead Man Walking, an eyewitness account of the death penalty. It has just come out in a graphic edition. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.